Okay. So, I brought something from your past.
Yes, I remember it well. Yeah, so you want the story on this, the whole story?
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
Okay. Well, this was Morris's, your grandfather's safe deposit box, I would call it, on the farm. It's solid wood. At the time, it was a natural finish. I painted it some years later. But anyway, he kept a few valuable papers in there. I don't know what they were necessarily. And he also had a few little trinkets, because if you open it up, it's got a tray. And there were various things in here. There was a Jayhawker from Kansas University when he was in college. There was an orange cigarette holder. And I don't know where it came from or why he had it, because he sure never used that. And the other kind of stuff in here. And then you can take this out, and under that was these papers. I have no idea what they were, but he also had a few trinkets. He had his football O, the old A from high school football team.
Oh.
I don't think it had ever been sewed on a jacket or anything. It was just new. But he probably got it when he was playing football. And he had a revolver. And the revolver was a short gun with short barrel. Seems like it was kind of silver color. I don't know if it had maybe it had a pearl handle. Anyway, he called it the suicide gun, and I never understood why, because it just didn't have any meaning to me. But anyway, it was always of interest to me. But he kept it in here, and he kept it locked, and I don't know where the key was. He kept it somewhere. And I was either just graduating from grade school or in high school, so I would have been 14 or 15, something like that. And there was no problem with leaving me at home alone. I always often stayed home alone, and sometimes I had chores to do, and sometimes I would ride Bingo, the pony, or I'd ride my bicycle around over the farm. So that was not unusual. But one day I got curious, and they were gone. I'm not sure where or when, but they weren't expected back for a while. And I thought I would like to see what's in that box. And I already knew, if you turn it around, my story just blew apart.
No, it's on this side.
Is it on this one? Okay. Well,
So the lock was,
the lock's in there. Yeah, okay. I had forgotten that. The lock's in here, but the screws to the latch are right here. 3 screws. So I got this out from underneath the stairway where he stored it, back out of sight. Put it on the kitchen table, I guess. Took these screws out. And by doing that, then I can just lift the whole front up and open it up like that. And I played with the stuff that was in here a little bit and looked at it and everything. And at some point I took this out, and here was a little gun sitting there. Well, that was interesting. And so I got it out and
Was it
You
loaded?
Huh?
Was it loaded?
No, it wasn't loaded. I made sure it wasn't loaded. I knew better. And that gun did not have a safety on it. If you pulled the trigger, the hammer came back, and then you pulled it far enough, it went bang, slammed back into the chamber.
Mm-hmm.
I did that a few times, and then I got adventuresome like this. And he kept, there were maybe 5 or 6 bullets in this top tray. So I put one of the bullets in the cylinder, just to be adventuresome, I suppose. And then I would pull the trigger because I could see that the chamber was open. So I pulled the trigger and it came back, the hammer came back and slammed forward. No problem. I did that a time or two. And I was 14, but awfully dumb. Because somehow I wasn't realizing that every time you pulled the trigger, it moved the cylinder one ahead. And so I was pulling it, and I think I was going to put it away, but I decided I'll just pull it one more time. And whammo! First I didn't know what it was, and then I realized I had just shot a bullet out of the gun. And what actually had happened is that when you pull the trigger, it not only pulled the hammer back, it also turned the cylinder forward one.
Mm-hmm.
So I had worked it around to where the bullet was in the last chamber of the cylinder. And so when I pulled the hammer back, I pulled the trigger, hammer came back, the cylinder moved up and put the bullet in the chamber. And then it clicked and fired the bullet. Okay, I had a problem. Big problem. It smelled like gunpowder in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the weather was reasonably good because I decided I've got to do something about this or I'm in big trouble. So the first thing I did was open the doors and windows to get the place aired out. And then I had the gun. I took the empty cartridge out and I took it out in the yard at some point and threw it over into the pasture in the grass where I knew no one would ever find it, or hoped they wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
I also then looked to see where the bullet had gone. And the kitchen had wainscoting, which is wood paneling up about waist level.
Mm-hmm.
And over near the door was a hole through the wainscoting, bullet hole. From there, and that went from there to the garage, to the back porch. So I went around into the back porch to see if it had come out through the siding, and it had not. It was inside the wall someplace. But here was this hole in this wood. Well, we kept, because of heat, the freezing in the winter, we kept some stuff in the pantry where it wasn't likely to freeze, and one of those things was paint and putty and things like that might freeze. So I got some putty or caulk, and I caulked up the hole. And I knew that there was paint there, and I guess I knew that it matched the wall. But the caulk was wet, and that would be sticky, so I did that early on and patched the hole. And then I got out a brush and I got out a paint can of the proper paint, and I, after I got that, I needed to wait until the putty had skimmed over so I could paint it.
Mm-hmm.
So I got out the gun cleaning kit, which was also in the pantry, because it was a kit that included things for cleaning a shotgun and rifle and things like that. And I got all that out and I cleaned the gun barrel, and I put the gun back in here. I put this back on. I closed it up. Put that back up. I put the screws back in. The lock was already in there. Anyway, so then I put the screws back in, and I took this box and I put it back under the stairs where I found it.
Mm-hmm.
I came back then, and the putty had skimmed over so that I could paint it. I opened the paint can, I painted, and all the time the door and the windows had been open so that couldn't smell it. I even went outside for a little while and came back in to see if I could smell it.
Mm-hmm.
And that seemed like did not have any smell anymore. And someplace along the line, and during all of this, I had noticed that I had a slick spot right there in my finger. Skin was slick, burned. The bullet, it was a sharp barreled gun, and I was just holding it in both hands. The bullet had just cleared my finger, but it had gotten close enough that it scorched my skin right there. Didn't feel it, didn't hurt or anything. And so, but I could see him, I knew what it was. I didn't give it much thought right at the time. Went ahead and got everything put away and everything. All the evidence was gone. And got all settled down. And then I got to thinking about this. A little lower and I'd have lost a finger. But the house was sitting in the middle of our 160-acre farm. So to get to we did not have a telephone. And to get to anybody, the neighbors, it was about a half-mile minimum, assuming they were at home.
Was this at the Gardner Farm?
Gardner Farm.
Okay.
So I could cut across pasture and then go up a quarter mile, be about a half-mile walk to one neighbor's farm, but they often weren't home. Over the other way was about the same way, and I knew those people worked. I didn't know them well, but I knew they both worked, so they were not likely to be there. The road was a quarter mile away, and I could have gone to the gravel road, crossed the creek up through the pasture and climbed over the fence. If I were bleeding, that might be a little bit of a problem. And waited for a car to come by, which they did fairly regularly, but not constantly. And so I was pretty isolated. If I had had a real accident,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't have, but it still bothers me now how close I came to being in a real emergency there, because we didn't have a first aid kit. I could have gotten a rag probably and wrapped around it or something, but it would have been quite a bit of time before I could have finally gotten in touch with somebody. And then we could not have gotten in touch with my parents because I probably knew where they were, like gone to a farm sale someplace or driven to Olathe to town or something, but no direct contact with them.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of luck involved there. And when I think about it, a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, responsible, do a trick like that is just dumb.
Well, I can't say I've ever done something like that, but,
Good.
it, I know I've done some dumb things that I'm lucky to be alive from. I just, haven't thought of them lately, so.
I'll tell you another one that still haunts me. When I was smaller, I would go with Dad to the grain elevator, right there in Bonita. And we would either go there to buy feed or some reason, maybe to sell some grain. I don't remember the purpose, but anyway, I was there, he was there. He was in the office talking with the manager, and I was wandering around through the elevator. Well, the elevator has a main floor and a place where you dump the grain into a pit in the basement, and then it is elevated up into the bins, which are up above, and then they can drain out of the bottom of the bin down a spout into a railroad car. So this is about 4 stories high. You go up, you go in the front door, and you're on the first level. There's a basement, and then there's maybe the equivalent of 4 stories up to the top of the elevator, where the controls are that shifted from one bin to the next, so that the grain would flow one way or it'd flow the other way.
Okay.
And so I was wandering around, and they
How
had,
old were you again?
6 or 8 maybe, something like that. 6, I don't know. Anyway, there were no safeties. They didn't put a railing around on the edge of the roof before to keep the workers from falling off or anything like that. And there was this hole in the floor, and it was just big enough for the little elevator that a man would step onto, an elevator employee, and with a series of ropes and pulleys, he could pull himself upward to the top, or he could lower himself down into the basement. And so he would go up and change the spouts for the grain to go from one place to another. Or when the railroad car got full, he would go up there and shut off the valve so that no more grain would flow down into the rail car or whatever. And he would go down into the basement whenever he needed to, after people had dumped grain in the dump, to change things down there so that the auger would take the grain back up. So here was this maybe 4 feet square, where the elevator could go from the main floor down, and then it would go up. It just left this big hole in the floor, about 4 feet. No barriers around it, it's just a hole. And so I was walking around, I knew what that was, and what it was for. It was the hole. I knew the elevator was someplace, and it was not there. So, first thing I did was I walked over, and I looked down into the hole to see if he was down below. And he wasn't. And he must be up above. So I raised up and whoop, the elevator was coming down, and it came right by my face. The guy was standing on it, and of course, going up, he pulled with a rope to get to the top. Coming down, he could just kind of let it slide and hold the rope in his hands, slow it down a little bit, and he could just drop, more or less, till he got to the floor. And so he was coming down from, I don't know where, but anyway, it came just down. I don't know if there possibly was a stop that kept it stopped level with the floor when it got down to the main floor. I don't know how he judged that. Anyway, he came down, stepped off the other way and went on wherever he wanted to go. And I was standing there with this thing right in front of me, the platform, and a little framework holding the ropes and pulleys and things. One instant before that, he would either hit me on the head or knock me in that hole, or worse, just halfway knock me in the hole and basically cut me in two. And that bothers me still.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think anybody but me ever knew anything about it. I don't, at the time, it was, oh gee, there he was. And I thought about it later, as I got older, and such, how close I came there. And I don't know if I ever told Dad about that or not.
I've never heard that story before.
It's tough.
Yeah, check something here.
Okay. Put the lock back in where it's supposed to be, but you can leave it unlocked if you, now we